We continue to assess and analyze Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And of course, cyber attacks are among the key weapons being utilized by the Kremlin in that invasion. Government and bank websites have been targeted, according to Ukrainian officials. And joining us now for more insight on the role of cyber attacks in modern warfare is Matt Hayden, former Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security for Cyber Infrastructure Risk and Resilience, making him the perfect person to talk to about this today. Matt, I want to recall back to something Vladimir Putin said in his overnight address, seemingly addressing the West, saying that anyone who can consider interfering from the outside, if you do so, you will face consequences greater than any you have faced in history. How much of that could come in the form of cyber attacks?
A good portion to start. That is where he sees his services as a premier weapon that he can wield against the West as well as its European partners. You don't have to move tanks. You don't have to move armories. You can just use your keyboard to get across what you think is an active art of war in an asymmetric manner. So it's also something very difficult to move back against. So, for example, if Russia strikes us with a cyber blow, what is the U.S. going to do? And so that's definitely what he conceives as an excellent use of his arsenal.
A lot of talk, though, about Russia's use of those types of means of attack. Not necessarily a lot of talk about the U.S.'s means of attack. There seems to be at least some hint today in the comments by Biden that they were willing to use cyber, I won't call them attacks, but use some sort of threat of some sort of a cyber retaliation.
So we have a defend forward model that we use with U.S. Cyber Command. It's on them to speak to how they leverage those campaigns, but that is definitely an object and an office and a great team of people we have that are cyber operators. We have military personnel whose job it is to perform offensive cyber, and to think that we would leave them off the table is to think that we're not listening to what our leaders are telling us. So there's likely a scenario in which that is a retaliatory or offensive cyber operation is there. We'll know about it when they tell us about it, because a lot of this is done in secure rooms for just that reason. But it's definitely a capability the United States has that it can pull when needed.
Matt, if we have the capabilities on offense, do we have adequate capability on defense? Are we well enough fortified?
The challenge with defense is that you have to defend from everything in all places. Offense is a lot easier. When we start talking about defense, we're not just talking about government systems. In a lot of countries in which critical infrastructure, such as our energy grid and our water systems, are owned by the government themselves, being in the United States, that's a bigger challenge. We have to work with our private sector partners and make sure they're fully invested in their security and what we can lend them from a government perspective to work from there.
So let's assume for a second that we do sort of go down this path with regards to Russia maybe pulling out some sort of cyber attack. Maybe there's some retaliation here. Do we actually see coordination at all in this world amongst nations in these attacks or the retaliation?
What we would advise our clients at Exiger is when you see this, you're going to hear noise. And that's to say that the Russians and their cyber operations, the Iranians and their cyber operations are going to take advantage of all of this movement, both online and in the real world. And they're going to take shots at different systems they believe to be vulnerable. So we don't see that coordination across some of these state actors as much as we see just an opportunistic space in which you need to lock down those vulnerabilities that we're seeing used. And at the same time, you've got to look at what the intelligence community is telling us. We have an active list from the government of known vulnerabilities that state actors are using, and we have to patch those so that they don't just have an open door into all of these critical systems.
Well, you said state actors, plural, Matt. As the U.S. focuses a lot of its attention on Russia, does this create potential other windows of opportunity for other bad actors?
We had an alert just today on the Iranians. So we do see other actors there. We'll see the North Koreans. We'll see everyone coming in and doing their part, sadly. No good opportunity gets passed by these guys, so they're going to step up.
All right, Matt, really appreciate you taking time to be with us. Matt Hayden there, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security for Cyber Infrastructure, Risk and Resilience. Of course, a lot of talk today.